with the introduction to the work of the POPs Review Committee between its 8th and 9th meeting. The committee plays a central role in the functioning of the Secretariat. It has been established to review new chemicals proposed for listing. And as such, it has the mandate to make recommendations to the Conference of the Parties on proposals for listing new chemicals. The committee also plays an advisory role on various scientific issues related to the implementation of the Convention. The committee meets annually to deliberate on various issues and also on the implementation of its program of work. The next meeting of the committee will take place in Rome in October of this year. Since the committee meets only 1 week per year, much of its work, or a substantial portion of its work, is actually undertaken between its meetings. And for that purpose, at each of its meetings, the committee establishes working groups and a mandate and a work plan for these working groups to undertake between the meetings. This results in certain outputs, which are usually draft documents, that are then considered and discussed further at the next meeting of the committee. The process for listing of new chemicals, it clearly illustrates the role of these working groups in the work of the committee. So when a party submits a proposal for listing a new chemical, the committee undertakes a review of the proposal and evaluates the information regarding that chemical according to criteria set out in the annexes of the Convention. This is a multiple-step process that takes place over several years. And in between each of the meetings of the committee, working groups develop draft assessments that are then considered at the following meeting of the committee. Now, at POPROC's 8th meeting, the committee established 6 working groups to work on several topics. 3 of these groups were tasked to develop documents on the review of new chemicals proposed for listing under the Convention. You will hear more about this in the second presentation. Then the other groups were tasked to work on a number of issues ranging from the revision of a guidance document on alternatives to POP, perfluorinated octane sulfonic acid, to the effect of climate change on the work of the committee. And you will hear more about one of these issues, which is the common application of the criteria set out in Annex E in the evaluation of chemicals in the third presentation. Parties and observers play an important role in this work of the committee between its sessions. They can participate directly and contribute to the development of draft documents by being part of the working groups. They can also provide information to the work of the working group upon request. They can alternatively provide comments once these outputs and draft documents are publicly circulated. And of course, they can also participate as observers during the actual meeting of the committee. This table summarizes the information that was requested for the elaboration of the various draft documents by the working groups, as well as the comments that have been requested or will soon be requested on draft documents prepared by the working groups. Highlighted in orange are those draft documents on which comments have or will be requested. Finally, the Secretariat facilitates the work of the working groups by relaying the information provided by partisan observers to the group and by making draft documents publicly available on the convention website. So to summarize, this introduction was meant to illustrate the importance of the role of the working groups and of the committee in the functioning of the convention. Now, at each meeting of the conference of the party, the parties establishes mandates for the work of the POPROC and also consider recommendations made by the committee at its bequest. Now, at the next meeting of the Conference of the Parties, which is due to start in less than 2 weeks, a number of items related to the work of the committee will be on the agenda. Most prominently, the recommendation by the committee to list hexabromocyclododecane under Annex A of the Convention with exemptions. So if you would like to know more, you can find all the related information on the website of the convention. Thank you for your attention. And now we will take 2 minutes break and come back to the presentation by Ms. Gutierrez.
Hello, Flora Gutierrez. I'd like to check audio connection with you. Floria, can you hear me? And can you speak? Please tell something so that we can hear you. Okay, since you cannot speak, I cannot hear you now. Gloria? Hello, Floria. It seems there's a problem with your microphone. So I recommend you to go to audio menu and check your speaker microphone, whether it's well connected. You can go to the audio menu on the top of the screen, and there is a speaker/microphone audio test. Please click that.
Hello, welcome back. Due to some slight technical problems, we will go instead to the presentation by Mr. Timo Sepala, who's the drafter on the working group on the application of Annex E criteria, rather than the presentation by Ms. Gutierrez, which will then come after. So, Timo, you have the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation. I will try to explain a little on what we have been working since the last POPs review committee meeting last fall, and I'd also like to mention that if you look at the title of the whole issues and whole paper, issues and common practices in the application of Annex E criteria, I have a feeling that it's not the most, it's not the best possible title for any paper, because it doesn't really give much information on what the paper is all about. But hopefully after this presentation it will be a little more clear for you. Melissa presented just a while ago this scheme of review of new chemicals, and I would just like to highlight that we will be focusing, and actually the paper that the intersectional working group has been working on, we'll be focusing on this third issue, which is that the task of the committee is to decide whether the chemical is likely, as a result of its long-range environmental transport, to lead to significant adverse human health and environmental effects such as global actions for it. So this is the Annex E process. The Annex E question is just what you can see here in the slide. To answer this Annex E question, the convention has specified certain information requirements that would, in a perfect world, this information would be available for the Annex E risk profile, the Annex E dossier. Based on this information, the committee would be able to answer the question that whether this chemical should be restricted. These bullets that you see here in this slide, they are representing the contents of Annex E of the convention, and these are really the main elements. And I think it's also worth noting that many chemicals that have been proposed for the evaluation, not all of this information has been complete, and the POPs review committee has been doing a lot of work every time in trying to make sure that all available information would be there for the decision making. However, already the convention, when it was drafted, it was foreseeing that in the Annex E chapter that the risk profile includes, as far as possible, the following types of information. So basically, the Annex E dossier consists of these elements. And I will now continue a little further on the history of this paper. Actually, the discussion on application of Annex E criteria, or actually what the application of Annex E criteria means, is that you take the detailed elements that were shown in the previous slide, and all of these elements contribute to the overall decision making. So we are actually talking about lots of different considerations and weight of evidence thinking and deciding, making small decisions on issues, whether they support global action or whether they are against. So this is what eventually makes the overall decision for the committee. And there have been many difficult topics which the committee has dealt with in the preparation of risk profiles for short-chain chlorinated paraffins. And for this purpose, the original paper highlighting certain issues that were relevant for the short chain for the SCC theories profile. The paper was collected, and this was commented by some parties and observers before the previous committee meeting for RCA. And of course, it has to be kept in mind that each of the chemicals will always be dealt with individually. But there are sort of certain general issues that are common approaches. So this is what actually the title means. Common practices really mean sort of general thinking that the committee has done. So it was considered that this kind of paper was useful, and therefore the previous POPROC decided that it would be useful to continue discussion on these certain elements, and therefore we have this ad hoc working group to work on it. And the first draft, which was largely based on the work before that was done before POP RCA, the first draft was circulated in January, and now we have the second draft at hand for the discussion. What is important to note about this paper is that it actually has two different parts. The first part is a recap or a collection of certain decisions that the committee has made in annex cases in the past. And this is really just noting what has happened in the past, and of course it is in no way it doesn't bind the future in any way, but okay, I'm just getting a message that the sound is not too good for the time being, so I will try to speak a little slower. Sorry about that. So the first part is really trying to capture what committee has done. So, okay, now we seem to have a connection problem. Should I continue, or should we try to reconnect or something? Okay. Well, maybe I will continue unless somebody interrupts me. Okay. Now we're having a small break when we're trying to figure out how to improve the connection.
Hello. We apologize, but we're having some technical issues, and as you can see, the sound wasn't very good. So Timo is trying to reconnect in the hope that this will fix this problem. We ask for your patience for a few minutes. Thank you.
Maybe just a sec. On that last step.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, Gloria. Yeah, hello, Gloria.
Okay, so I can sound.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
can hear you now.
Okay, great.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello?
Hello, Timo.
Is it better now?
Can you speak again?
Is it any better now?
Yeah, but still some noise. Maybe you can try.
Maybe I will just see.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, Timo. You can proceed your presentation, but please speak slowly so then everyone can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I will do my best.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about this. Anyway, I will try to get back to the presentation. The important thing about the NFE common approaches paper is that it is in fact in two parts. It is first part is try to look at the past decisions and based on what grounds those decisions have been made and what kind of elements there would be that would possibly be helpful for the future decisions as well. Because if this is what the committee has done in the past, then it might be helpful, especially considering that there will be new members in the committee coming in every 2 years. The second part of the document is dealing with open issues, open questions. It's more like a discussion part that we are making use of the intersessional working period to collect views and opinions of the experts who are participating in the work on certain specific issues that I will go through later on in the presentation. These are issues that the committee has encountered so far in the previous 8 meetings, and they are issues where it is not possible to say that this would have been a practice by the committee to work this way or that way. One of the most important things about this whole discussion part is to collect views for future discussions, so that it would be a collection of ideas and opinions and elements once the committee will have to deal with certain issues, and there would at least be some preparation on certain things. Yeah. First of all, if we look at the first part of the common practices, the first part is essentially containing some explanatory language on the way the information in the risk profile, when the whole Annex E information has been used, and also it has a brief look on what is the relationship between Annex D phase and Annex E phase, because these are related, but they are very different phases in the evaluation process. The items that you see listed here, the bullets, have been discussed and elaborated in the Annex E paper that is currently out. Okay. And I will just briefly introduce a few things. The first thing is the use of local data or data from remote areas in the committee's decision making. This part in the document essentially clarifies the use of measured data in decision making. The second part deals with a very hot topic that has always been discussed in the committee meetings, which is comparison of exposure levels and effect area. The text in the Annex E paper seeks to add some clarity on how different kinds of data can be used in comparison or have been used, and when they also cannot be used, when it is considered that it is not possible to use this kind of information. The fourth element deals with benchmarking, which is comparison of the data for a POPs candidate, a nominated POP, with properties of data for a POP that has already been listed in the convention, for which the committee has seen that it has to be restricted globally. I think one of the important elements here is that this comparison has been done with POPs that have gone through this Annex E process or the whole evaluation process. So it has not been done comparing the candidates with POPs that have not been reviewed, which means these initial 12 to 30,000 POPs. There are a few paragraphs dealing with modeling and how committee has used environmental modeling. And basically the document is just noting that when there has been no measured environmental concentrations or concentrations by iota, the committee has used information from environmental modeling. And the final element in the first part is dealing with evaluation of time trends of releases or environmental concentrations in the remote area. And for this, the conclusion is that evidence or likelihood of an increase in concentrations in the environment over time is an additional argument for the committee to consider global action is work. And I would like to stress with this first part that it's important to read it exactly as it says. It's important to read that this is what the committee has done. It doesn't necessarily mean that it would be restricting. When it says that if there is evidence or likelihood of an increase in concentrations, the global action is warranted, it doesn't mean that this would be required. So that there could be, this is just noting that at some point in time the committee has considered it like this. And or the committee considers that this is such evidence that could be interpreted this way. Then going to the second part of the NFT paper, which is views on open questions in the application of NFT. And here you can see the list of issues that have been dealt with in this NFT paper. The first thing is the comparison of exposure levels and effect data. This is something that, as in the first part, it was already considered that some decisions have been made based on this and some conclusions. But this second part, the open question, there are lots of open questions which are related to comparison issues. So it seeks clarity on what kind of information could be comparable and any reservations that would be related to such comparison when the committee will be doing this kind of activity. The second important thing under the discussion is related to significant adverse effects, and this is related to the fact that the committee identifies that significant adverse effects would be that the chemical would have to have significant adverse effects for it to be restricted. But the the convention does not specify what it means by significant adverse effects. So there is some discussion on what kind of effects could be significant, and it's also preparation for the future discussions, because this is part of the convention requirement, so this is something that has not been specified very well in the convention, and it has to be discussed by the committee every time with every substance. So we have a collection of views by the experts in this paper, which hopefully will help us a little further on these discussions. The third point is use of environmental modeling information for chemicals that are newly introduced to the global market. And this is actually dealing with the issue of a new chemical for which you wouldn't have monitoring information or environmental measurement data, because it's a new chemical and nobody's actually measuring it. And in these cases, the committee might want to use environmental modeling information. The fourth element is the evaluation of time trends of releases and concentrations in the remote areas. And this part is also reviewing, or actually the effects of climate change are also included in this part. So there is a little text on climate change, but of course the climate change guidance is on it. But these two documents are slightly related to this part. And finally, there are two new items which are in the second draft, and they were not in the previous draft. And these are dealing with endocrine disruptive chemicals or endocrine disruption effects and combination effects for toxic reactions. The reason why we included these two elements into these open questions is because these are constantly debated and discussed by the committee, and whenever it's dealing with chemicals that would have endocrine disruptive effects or that would participate in toxic interactions. Of course, for toxic interactions, the committee has also done separately some guiding work on how to take into account these elements. And finally, this is my second to last slide, or actually last. I will just briefly mention that the second draft is currently out of this paper. It's a very short paper, it's only 9 pages. So if you have a chance to have a look at it, the very happy if you have any comments on it, because the intention is that we would be able to produce a final draft by 17 June this year. And as you can see on the screen, the deadline for comments is 2nd of May, which is in 2 weeks. So there is not much time to submit comments on it, but I can secretly reveal that I will be myself in the conference of the party. So if you can't make it by the deadline, you can also submit them a few days late, at least as long as the conference of the parties will go on. And further on, the final draft we will submit by 7th of June, and after that, the 9th meeting of the committee in October will be discussing on this paper. And I think there has been discussion that this would be sort of a living document, and I don't think there will be much of adoption for this paper. But on the other hand, the committee can decide what to do with it as soon as it will see the final version of it. But certainly, we are not expecting that we will be able to answer the open questions or find solutions to the open questions by the next draft. So this will conclude my presentation. I'd like to thank you, and I hope you actually could understand what I was saying, because it's a pity if the connection is bad. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well, Gloria. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. For those colleagues from the American continent, and good afternoon and good evening for those in Europe, Africa, and Asia. I would like to present to you the chemicals that are presently under review of the POPROC of the committee, and the advance on them since the proposal was presented to the POPROC. First of all, presently we have 4 chemical groups or chemicals under review. All of them were presented by the European Union. The first chemical to present in this webinar is the chlorinated naphthalines. The proposal to review and list this chemical group was received in POPROC 7 in 2011, together with the scientific information related to the compliance of the POP criteria. The chlorinated naphthalines were used for decades as wood preservation as additives to paints and engine oils, and also for cable insulation and capacitors. Until 1970s, chlorinated naphthalines were high-volume chemicals. The POPROC decided in the POPROC 7 that except for the monochlorinated naphthalene, the chlorinated naphthalines met the criteria of Annex D of the convention and to prepare the draft risk profile. The second chemical under review is the hexachlorobutadiene, also received in the proposal to review during the POPROC 7 with the information required. HCBD, as it is known, was widely used as a fumigant to control pests and as an industrial solvent. It also occurs as a byproduct during production of other chlorinated solvents. The committee also examined the proposal by the European Union to list hexachlorobutadiene under the convention and decided that it met the screening criteria of Annex D and to prepare the draft risk profile. The third chemical we have is pentachlorophenol, its salts and the esters. In this case, the POPROC decided to defer the consideration to the 8th meeting, where some additional review studies were needed in order to clarify fate and transport of pentachlorophenol and pentachlorophenol anisole. And the last group on the list is short-chain chlorinated paraffins, which has a lot more history in the committee, and it was presented during POPROC 2 in 2006. Now we're going to see each compound or each chemical group independently. And I'm going to start with hexachlorobutadiene, since it's a single product or a single chemical, not a group. As I said before, it's a side product in almost every process to produce chlorinated hydrocarbons, because it is it's significant high yield of HCBD in the processes. Some uses were found to the chemical, and it was intentionally produced in Europe until 1970s. But information about it ceased production in other regions is not available. HCBD found use in chemical and metallurgical industry, solvent and transformer fluid, insecticide used in agriculture. The production of HCBD is now considered unintentional, and emissions have decreased due to the optimization of chlorination processes and in-site recycling. The objective of the review of this chemical is to improve processes to avoid emissions, as well as to avoid the reintroduction of new uses. HCBD is presently listed in the UNIFIC Convention for Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution and the priority hazardous substance in the EU. It's also listed as in substances of possible concern by the OSPAR. In the case of chlorinated naphthalines, as you can see, now we're talking about a group of compounds from 1 to 8 chlorine atoms in the naphthalene structure, leading to exactly 75 congeners. Congeners and isomers were discussed in an earlier webinar and a few weeks ago, and some of you were participants. This chemical group was intentionally produced during the last century, reaching a production peak of 100,000 to 200,000 tons, decreasing during the 1970s and eventually stopped. As mentioned before, this compound was found its application as a wood preservative, additive to paints, engine oils, cable sheets, and the electric fluids, as well as veterinary medicines. And in terms of international agreements, it has the same status as HCBD. In this slide, we want to show how the work on these two chemicals, HCBD and chlorinated naphthalines, have been advancing in the POPROC. During POPROC 8, the risk profiles and XC of both chemicals were adopted, and the intersectional working groups are now dedicated for the preparation of the risk management evaluation, Annex F, and it has received the information from parties and observers in January and received the first round of comments. The second draft is circulated from April 2nd, and comments are due for May 2024. The resulting draft documents will be submitted to discussion during the POPROC 9 next October, and hopefully a recommendation for the COP. So the situation for these two chemicals is sort of parallel. In the case of pentachlorophenol, also known as PCP, and the methylated metabolite pentachloroanisole. In 1983, the global production of PCP was estimated to be 90,000 tons, and it seems that it is still being produced in the Americas with a production of 7,000 tons in year 2009. It has been used since 1930s as a wood preservative, as a biocide, pesticide, disinfectant, defoliant, and anti-substain agent and antimicrobial agent, including the production since 1930s of its ester derivative, the pentachlorophenyl laurate. PCP is also a transformation product or a metabolite of other organochlorinated compounds, such as hexachlorobenzene, lindane, and quintosan. In terms of international agreements, PCP is included in the Stockholm Convention and OSPAR priority list. The way that this compound has advanced since it was proposed, as shown in this slide, PCP and its derivatives were presented to the UN the same time as HCBD and chlorinated naphthalene. After POPROC 7, during the intersessional period, the ad hoc working group collected more information on transformation of PCP to PCA, the methylation or the metabolite, and its fate and transport processes. During POPROC 8, the new information was presented and found that even though PCP does not meet the criteria, its metabolite PCA does, and therefore a risk profile should be prepared, and this task is being addressed during the intersessional period. Parties and observers were requested to provide information until January and generated the first draft and risk profile, which is being circulated just yesterday. Comments on the document are due on May 27 in order to generate the draft risk profile to be discussed during the next meeting, POPROC 9. The third group of compounds are short-chain chlorinated paraffins, referred as SCCP, which, as mentioned before, has a longer history at the POPROC. This chemical group corresponds to alkanes from 10 to 30 carbon atoms and at least 48% of chlorination. The product of this chemical group, the production of this chemical group is active in several countries, such as United States, the EU, Russia, India, China, Japan, Brazil, and Slovakia. SCCP are used in metalworking lubricants, paints, adhesives, and sealants, plastics, and rubber, and as flame retardant. And it is listed in the Stockholm Convention as transborder air pollution and in the OSPAR priority list. As I said before, the SCCP has a longer history. It started by a proposal from the European Union in POPROC 2 in 2006, and the review committee decided that SCCP met the Annex D criteria. A draft risk profile was prepared for discussion on POPROC 3. However, there was no consensus to adopt the risk profile, especially for the adverse effect, and this went on and on to POPROC 6. During the intersessional periods, another group has collected more information, especially in toxic interaction, which was presented during POPROC 8. But again, the risk profile was not adopted. This time, the POPROC has decided to allow more time for the parties and observers to provide information, and a working group will continue on the working on the risk profile and bring Annex E again to discussion for POPROC 11. That will be in 2015. With this slide, I finish my presentation, and I will be available for any questions or comments. Thank you.